"Sir, happy birthday," shouted the beggar girl to the millionaire widower, surprising him with a shy smile. She held out a velvet box, inside which was a necklace that he recognized immediately, that of his late wife. How could a child on the streets have something so precious and intimate from his past? The question hung in the air as the girl began to reveal secrets he had never imagined about his own life. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. Marcus Reynolds stood at the window of his penthouse office, his silhouette casting a long shadow across the polished marble floor. The city sprawled before him like a canvas of concrete and glass, each building a testament to success and ambition. His success, his ambition. At 45, he had everything money could buy, yet the emptiness inside him grew deeper with each passing day. The morning sun caught the edge of his platinum watch, a reminder of time's relentless march forward. 3 years had passed since Elizabeth's departure, yet her absence still echoed through every corner of his life. The thought of her made his chest tighten, a familiar ache he'd learned to ignore by drowning himself in work and endless meetings. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Reynolds, the board meeting starts in 20 minutes. "Thank you, Sarah," he replied, adjusting his Italian silk tie. Another day, another series of negotiations and power plays. The routine had become his shelter, his way of avoiding the hollow spaces in his life. The elevator ride to the conference room felt longer than usual. Marcus found himself studying his reflection in the polished doors, perfectly tailored suit, not a hair out of place, the very picture of corporate success. Yet something in his eyes had changed over the years, a warmth that had slowly faded into cool professionalism. The board meeting proceeded like clockwork. Numbers, projections, strategies, the language of success he'd mastered long ago. Richard Chen, his closest business partner, presented the quarterly reports with his usual precision. "Our profit margins have increased by 15%, Richard announced, his voice carrying the satisfied tone of someone who knew they were winning. Marcus nodded, making appropriate comments at all the right moments, but his mind kept drifting. The morning had brought with it an unusual restlessness, a feeling he couldn't quite shake. Today marked exactly 3 years since he'd last held Elizabeth's hand, since he'd last seen her smile. The thought caught him off guard, making him pause, mid-sentence during his closing remarks. After the meeting, Richard lingered behind. "Marcus, you seem distracted today. Everything all right?" "Just tired," Marcus replied, the lie coming easily to his lips. "The Singapore deal is taking more time than expected." Richard studied him for a moment, concern flickering across his features. They'd known each other for 20 years, building empires together, but even Richard knew better than to mention Elizabeth or the way Marcus had changed since her departure. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of emails and phone calls. By noon, Marcus decided to walk to the small Italian restaurant where he usually had lunch. The familiar route took him through the quieter streets of the financial district, past high-end boutiques and exclusive clubs. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the first hints of winter. Marcus pulled his coat closer, his shoes clicking against the pavement. The street was unusually empty, the usual crowd of business people notably absent. Perhaps that's why he noticed her, a small figure huddled in the doorway of an abandoned storefront. At first, he almost walked past, trained by years of city living to avoid eye contact with those on the streets. But something made him slow his steps. The child couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, her clothes worn but clean, her face bearing a kind of quiet dignity that seemed far beyond her years. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, something shifted in the carefully ordered world of Marcus Reynolds. The girl's eyes were startlingly familiar, holding a warmth he hadn't seen in years. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. What happened next would change everything. The girl's face suddenly lit up with recognition, though Marcus was certain he'd never seen her before. She scrambled to her feet, clutching something in her small hands. "Sir," she called out, her voice clear and surprisingly confident. "Happy birthday." Marcus froze mid-step. It wasn't his birthday, He opened his mouth to correct her, but the words died in his throat as she extended her arms, holding out a small velvet box. The box looked old, its once rich purple fabric faded with Tonheim. "This is for you," she said simply, as if presenting valuable gifts to strangers was the most natural thing in the world. Against his better judgment, Marcus found himself reaching for the box. The velvet felt familiar under his fingers, stirring memories he'd tried so hard to suppress. With trembling hands, he opened it, and the world around him seemed to stop. Inside the box, nestled against faded silk, lay a pearl necklace that Marcus would have recognized anywhere. Each pearl seemed to glow with an inner light, the delicate silver clasp still bearing the tiny engraving he'd specially commissioned. E.R. Elizabeth Reynolds. His hands began to shake as memories flooded back, unbidden and overwhelming. "Where did you get this?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the distant city noise. The necklace had been Elizabeth's favorite, a wedding anniversary gift he'd spent months searching for. It had vanished along with so many other pieces of her life, leaving him with nothing but photographs and memories. The girl's smile never wavered. "My mom gave it to me," she said, then quickly corrected herself. "Well, not my real mom. The lady who took care of me for a while. She said it was special, and that one day I'd know exactly who to give it to." Marcus couldn't tear his eyes away from the necklace. The pearls caught the sunlight just as they had the day he'd first presented it to Elizabeth, watching her eyes light up with joy. How many times had he seen these same pearls around her neck at charity galas, business dinners, or quiet evenings? "At home? You're the lady who took care of you," Marcus managed to say, his throat tight. "What was her name?" The girl's face clouded slightly. "Miss Sarah Martinez. She was really nice. She used to tell me stories about a beautiful lady who wore this necklace. She said the lady was like an angel, always helping people." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Sarah Martinez, Elizabeth's closest friend from college. Someone who had seemingly vanished after the funeral. He'd tried to reach out to her several times, but she'd already left her job at the local hospital, her apartment cleared out, no forwarding address. "I'm Lucy," the girl offered, watching his face carefully. "Miss Sarah said I should wait here. She said someone special would come by and I'd know them when I saw them. I've been waiting for 3 days." She paused, then added with a child's simple honesty, "You look just like the man in the pictures she showed me." Marcus found himself sinking to one knee, bringing himself to eye level with Lucy. Up close he could see the intelligence in her eyes, the quiet strength that seemed so at odds with her young age. "Lucy," he said softly, "can you tell me more about Miss Sarah? When did you last see her?" Lucy's expression grew serious. "She got sick, really sick. But before she had to go away, she made me promise to wait here. She said it was important." The girl's voice wavered slightly. "She said you'd know what to do." The implications of Lucy's words slowly sank in. Sarah Martinez, Elizabeth's dearest friend, had been caring for this child. She'd had Elizabeth's necklace all this time, and now through this little girl she'd engineered this meeting. But why? What was the message she'd been trying to send? Before Marcus could process these thoughts, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Mr. Reynolds, what are you doing here?" Richard Chen stood at the corner, his expression a mixture of surprise and something else. Concern. Alarm. Marcus rose quickly to his feet, instinctively pocketing the velvet box. "Richard, I was just—" he began, but Lucy interrupted. "Do you really know Miss Sarah?" she asked Marcus, ignoring Richard completely. "She said you would understand about the necklace. She said it would help you remember something important." Richard's eyes narrowed at the mention of Sarah's name. He took a step forward, his usual smooth demeanor slightly ruffled. "Marcus, we have the Tokyo conference call in 15 minutes. Perhaps we should—" But Marcus wasn't listening. His mind was racing, connecting dots he didn't even know existed. Sarah Martinez hadn't just disappeared, she'd been caring for this child. She'd had Elizabeth's necklace, and now 3 years to the day since Elizabeth's departure, This little girl appeared with a message that seemed to reach from the past. "Lucy," he said, making a decision that would alter the course of many lives. "Would you like to have lunch with me? I think we have a lot to talk about." Richard's sharp intake of breath was audible, but Marcus ignored it. Something was happening here, something that felt both terrifying and right. As Lucy's small hand slipped into his, he felt the first crack in the walls he'd built around his heart, and somewhere in a corner of his soul he'd thought long dark, a tiny light began to shine. The small Italian restaurant felt different today. Marcus sat across from Lucy in his usual corner booth, watching as she carefully arranged her napkin on her lap, a gesture that seemed oddly refined for a child who had been living on the streets. The waiter, Paolo, had raised an eyebrow at the unusual pair but said nothing as he brought them menus. "I like spaghetti," Lucy announced, her eyes scanning the leather-bound menu with surprising focus. "Miss Sarah used to make it for me on special days. She put little pieces of basil on top, like tiny green stars." Marcus studied the child before him, noting details he'd missed in their initial encounter. Though her clothes were worn, they were clean and carefully mended. Her dark hair was neatly braided, and there was something in her mannerisms that spoke of proper care and attention. This was not a child who had spent her whole life on the streets. "Lucy," he began carefully, "how long did you live with Miss Sarah?" The girl thought for a moment, her small forehead creasing with concentration. 2 years, I think. Before that I was at the Rainbow House." She said this matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "The Rainbow House. It's an orphanage on the east side of the city," she explained, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. "That's where Miss Sarah found me. She used to come and read stories to the children every Thursday, but she always read special stories to me, stories about a beautiful lady who helped people and wore pretty necklaces." Marcus felt his throat tighten. The pearl necklace in his pocket seemed to grow heavier. "These stories about the beautiful lady, what else did Miss Sarah tell you about her?" Lucy's eyes lit up. "Oh, she told me lots of things. She said the lady was like sunshine. Wherever she went, she made things brighter. She worked at a big hospital and helped sick children feel better. And she had a special garden where she grew flowers for people who were sad." Each word felt like a key turning in a lock Marcus had sealed years ago. Elizabeth had indeed worked at Metropolitan Children's Hospital, running their pediatric ward. The garden Lucy mentioned had been her pride and joy, a rooftop sanctuary she'd created for her young patients. But how much should he tell this child? Before he could decide, Paolo arrived with their drinks. Lucy carefully sipped her apple juice through a straw, her eyes never leaving Marcus's face. "You look sad when I talk about the lady," she observed. "Did you know her too?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes, I did. She was my wife, Elizabeth. The necklace you gave me, it was hers." "I thought so," Lucy said softly. "Miss Sarah had a picture of you both. You were smiling really big, and the lady, Elizabeth, was wearing the necklace." Miss Sarah said, "It was taken on the happiest day of your lives." Marcus knew exactly which photograph she meant. It had been taken at their wedding reception, a candid shot of them dancing. Elizabeth had been wearing the pearl necklace with her wedding dress, a detail that had made the society pages swoon. But why had Sarah kept that photo? And why had she shared these stories with Lucy? "Mr. Reynolds," Lucy's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Miss Sarah said there was something else I needed to give you, but I had to wait until you remembered how to smile like you did in that picture." The simple statement caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" Lucy reached into her small backpack and pulled out a worn envelope. "She said I'd know when it was the right time. I think maybe it is now because your eyes look different than when I first saw you today." The envelope was sealed with wax, an elegant S pressed into the deep blue seal. Marcus recognized it immediately. Sarah had always loved old-fashioned touches like wax seals. His hands trembled slightly as he took it from Lucy. "There's more," Lucy continued, her voice taking on a serious tone that seemed far too mature for her years. "Miss Sarah said that once I gave you this, things would start to change. She said secrets are like seeds. They need the right time to grow." Just then, Marcus's phone buzzed insistently. Richard's name flashed on the screen, along with notifications Of 3 missed calls. The Tokyo conference call he'd completely forgotten. But for the first time in 3 years, work didn't seem like the most important thing in his world. He silenced the phone and turned his attention back to Lucy, who was now twirling spaghetti on her fork with surprising elegance. "Lucy, where are you staying now? Who's taking care of you?" The girl's fork paused mid-twirl. "Nobody, really. Not since Miss Sarah had to go away, but she made me promise to wait for you. She said you'd know what to do, just like you did before." Just like you did before. The phrase echoed in Marcus's mind, stirring something in his memories. There was something familiar about Lucy's eyes, about the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, something that tugged at the edges of his consciousness, demanding attention. The envelope seemed to burn in his pocket, next to Elizabeth's necklace. 2 pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known existed until today. As he watched Lucy carefully wipe her mouth with her napkin, another surprisingly refined gesture, Marcus realized he was standing at a crossroads. He could return to his carefully ordered world of business meetings and empty successes, or he could open that envelope and face whatever secrets Sarah Martinez had kept for 3 years. Back in his office, Marcus sat at his desk, the wax-sealed envelope before him like a harbinger of change. Lucy was in the adjacent conference room, contentedly drawing with supplies Sarah had provided, her small face peaceful in the afternoon light. He'd instructed his assistant to cancel all his remaining appointments, earning himself a concerned look he chose to ignore. With careful fingers, he broke the seal. Inside, he found several pages covered in Sarah Martinez's distinctive handwriting. The letter was dated just 3 months ago. "Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then Lucy has found you, and more importantly, you've allowed yourself to be found. I know you have questions about the necklace, about Lucy, about everything that happened 3 years ago. The answers are complicated, and some of them might be difficult to accept. But Elizabeth always said you were stronger than you knew. First, you should know that I never really left after Elizabeth's departure. I've been watching over Lucy, fulfilling a promise I made long ago. Elizabeth made me swear to protect her greatest secret, but now it's time for the truth to emerge. Do you remember the Thompson Center, the private rehabilitation facility where Elizabeth volunteered every Tuesday? She wasn't just volunteering, Marcus. She was visiting Lucy's mother, Amanda Chen. Yes, Richard Chen's younger sister, though I suspect he never told you about her. Amanda was battling an illness that would eventually take her away, but during her time at the center, she and Elizabeth formed a deep bond. Amanda had no one except her brother, who had distanced himself from her situation, focusing instead on building his business empire with you. Elizabeth became her closest friend, her confidant, and eventually, the person she trusted most in the world. When Amanda realized she wouldn't recover, she made Elizabeth promise to look after her daughter, Lucy. Elizabeth kept this promise secret, even from you. She knew how complicated it would be, given your business relationship with Richard. She was working with lawyers to become Lucy's legal guardian when her own time came to an end. The necklace you gave her. She had planned to pass it down to Lucy when the time was right. I took up Elizabeth's promise after she was gone. Richard had already arranged for Lucy to be placed in the Rainbow House orphanage, wanting to keep her existence quiet to protect his corporate image. He visits her once a year, though Lucy doesn't know he's her uncle. Elizabeth had left detailed instructions about Lucy's care, along with funds to ensure her well-being. I've been managing these arrangements from the shadows, watching, waiting for the right moment to bring everything to light. The timing of this revelation isn't random, Marcus. Elizabeth believed in signs and moments of significance. She always said that the heart knows when it's ready for truth. Lucy has her mother's eyes and Elizabeth's spirit. Perhaps you've noticed this already. She's the bridge between past and present, between what was lost and what could still be found. There's more you need to know, but some truths must be discovered rather than told. Elizabeth left something else for you, something that only Lucy can help you find. She believed that together, you and Lucy could heal each other's hearts. I wish I could be there to see what happens next, but my own journey is coming to an end. The same illness that took Amanda is now taking me, which is why I had to set these events in motion. Lucy knows I won't be coming back, but she's stronger than her years might suggest. She has survived loss before, and she carries within her the same light that made Elizabeth so special. Marcus, Elizabeth never stopped believing in your capacity for love, even when you tried to hide your heart behind walls of work and wealth. She knew that someday you would need to find your way back to the person you used to be, the man who knew that success wasn't measured in dollar signs, but in the lives we touch and the love we share. Lucy is not just Amanda's daughter or Elizabeth's promise. She's a chance for redemption, for healing, for finding what you thought was lost forever. The question is, are you ready to open your heart to the possibility of love? Again, the choice is yours, as it has always been. But remember what Elizabeth used to say: the greatest risks we take are the ones that lead us back to ourselves. With hope and faith, Sarah Martinez, P.S. Look in Elizabeth's garden. She left. Something there for both of you. Marcus lowered the letter, his vision blurred with unshed tears. Through the conference room window, he could see Lucy drawing, her small face a mirror of concentration. Now he understood why her expressions had seemed so familiar. They were echoes of Amanda Chen, a woman he'd seen only in photographs on Richard's desk years ago. The weight of secrets, promises, and intertwined destinies settled around him like a heavy cloak. In the distance, his phone buzzed again, Richard no doubt demanding explanations. But for now, Marcus remained still, watching Lucy draw, wondering how many other secrets Elizabeth's garden might hold. The rooftop garden of Metropolitan Children's Hospital stood as a testament to Elizabeth's vision. Even 3 years after her departure, the space thrived with life, a tribute to the careful maintenance instructions she'd left behind. Marcus stood at its entrance, Lucy's small hand in his, both taking in the peaceful sanctuary above the bustling city. "It's just like in Miss Sarah's stories," Lucy whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the pergola, where climbing roses still bloomed despite the approaching winter. She said Elizabeth made this place for people who needed to remember how to smile. Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest, but it was different now, less sharp, more like the gentle pull of a healing wound. "She spent countless hours here," he said softly. "I used to bring her dinner when she worked late, planning new additions to help her patients heal." Lucy walked ahead, trailing her fingers along the leaves of various plants. She moved with purpose, as if following an invisible map. Miss Sarah said there was a special spot where Elizabeth kept her most important things. She said it was behind the big blue flowers. Marcus scanned the garden, his eyes landing on a cluster of hydrangeas, Elizabeth's favorites. She'd insisted on the blue variety, saying they reminded her of the ocean at dawn. As they approached the corner where the hydrangeas grew most abundantly, Lucy pointed to a small stone bench, partially hidden by the flowers. "There," she said confidently. "That's where we need to look." The bench seemed ordinary enough, but Marcus remembered Elizabeth's penchant for hidden compartments and secret spaces. She'd always loved the element of surprise, the joy of discovery. He knelt beside the bench, running his hands along its surface until his fingers caught on a slight irregularity in the stone. "Lucy, come help me with this," he said, and together they pressed on opposite sides of the bench's seat. With a soft click, a panel shifted, revealing a hollow space beneath. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its pages slightly yellowed with time, and a small wooden box with intricate carvings. Marcus reached for them with trembling hands, but Lucy stopped him. "Wait," she said, her voice carrying that same mature tone that still caught him off guard. "Miss Sarah said we should read it together. She said it was important that we both understand." A noise at the garden's entrance made them both turn. Richard Chen stood there, his usually impeccable appearance slightly disheveled, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. "I thought I'd find you here," he said, his voice strained. "Marcus, we need to talk. Alone." Lucy instinctively stepped closer to Marcus, her small body tense. Something in her posture suggested she recognized Richard, though she'd shown no sign of it at their first meeting. "Whatever you need to say, Richard, you can say it here," Marcus replied, placing a protective hand on Lucy's shoulder. The weight of Sarah's letter seemed to press against him through his jacket pocket. Richard's eyes fixed on Lucy, a mixture of pain and longing crossing his features. "I've been trying to reach you all day. The board is concerned about your sudden disappearance, and now I find you here with—" His voice faltered. "With your niece," Marcus finished quietly. "Yes, I know about Amanda." The name hung in the air between them like a physical presence. Lucy's head snapped up, her eyes widening as she looked between the two men. "You knew my mother?" she asked Richard, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard seemed to age years. In those few seconds, his carefully maintained facade cracking. Yes, she was my sister." He took a step forward, then stopped, as if unsure of his welcome. I believed keeping you away from all this was the best thing. The business world is cruel, and after what happened to Amanda, you had no right," Marcus cut in, his voice hard. "Elizabeth knew that. That's why she was working to become Lucy's guardian. She understood what family really means." Lucy's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. "Is that why you only came once a year? Why you never said who you were?" Her voice trembled slightly, but her chin lifted in a gesture that painfully reminded both men of Amanda. Richard's shoulders sagged. "I thought I was protecting you. The press, the business world, they can be ruthless. I didn't want you to face that, but I made sure you were taken care of, that you had everything you needed. Except family," Lucy said simply. "Except love." The truth of her words seemed to echo through the garden. Marcus looked down at the journal and box, still nestled in the bench's hidden compartment. Whatever secrets they held, he knew they would have to wait. Right now, 3 broken pieces of a family stood in Elizabeth's garden, surrounded by the beauty she'd created, facing truths that had been buried for far too long. Richard took another step forward, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something more vulnerable. "Lucy, I know I can't change the past, but maybe—" He looked at Marcus, a silent question in his eyes. Marcus felt the weight of the moment, understanding that whatever he decided next would change all their lives forever. The journal in the bench seemed to pulse with possibility. Elizabeth's final messages waiting to be discovered. But first, they had to navigate this moment, this reunion that Elizabeth had somehow foreseen and planned for, even from beyond. The garden's greenhouse offered them shelter from the cooling evening air. Marcus sat with Lucy on a wooden bench, while Richard paced before them, his usual corporate polish completely undone. The journal and box from the bench's compartment sat between them, still unopened, waiting. "I visit her every year on her birthday," Richard said quietly, finally stopping his pacing. "I sit in the back of the orphanage playroom, watching her play, wanting to say something but never finding the courage. The business, the reputation, the empire we built, it all seemed so important. Until now." Lucy studied her uncle's face, with that unnervingly mature gaze of hers. "Miss Sarah showed me pictures of my mother," she said. "She told me stories about how she loved to paint and sing. Did you know that?" Richard's breath caught. "Yes. She was always creating something. Our parents wanted her to join the family business, but Amanda, she saw the world differently. She filled her apartment with canvases and music sheets." He smiled faintly. "She used to say I worked too hard, that I was missing the colors of life." Marcus watched this exchange, remembering how Elizabeth had tried to tell him something similar. Over the years, how many times had she invited him to spend an afternoon in this garden, only to have him reply with talk of meetings and deadlines. "I think it's time," Lucy said suddenly, reaching for the journal. "Miss Sarah said Elizabeth left answers for all of us." Her small fingers traced the leather binding before carefully opening it to the first page. Marcus and Richard moved closer, drawn by the sight of Elizabeth's elegant handwriting. "My dearest friends," Lucy read slowly, her voice clear in the greenhouse's peaceful atmosphere. "If you're reading this, then Sarah has succeeded in bringing together the pieces of a puzzle I won't be here to complete myself. Marcus, my love, and Richard, my friend, I hope you can forgive the secrets I've kept." She paused, looking up at the two men who stood transfixed by the words. Marcus nodded encouragingly and she continued. "Amanda came to me first as a patient's sister, visiting the children's ward with her paintings and songs. We became friends quickly, sharing stories and dreams. When she fell ill, she confided in me about her greatest fear, not for herself but for her daughter. Lucy was only 4 then, and Amanda knew that Richard, despite his love for her, was too entangled in the corporate world to provide the kind of life she wanted for her child." Richard sank onto a nearby chair, his face in his hands. Lucy's voice grew stronger as she read on. "She asked me to promise that Lucy would grow up knowing love, creativity, and the simple joy of being herself. I knew it would be complicated. The connections between our families, the business relationships at stake. But looking into Lucy's eyes, I saw the same spark that Amanda had, the same ability to see beauty in unexpected places." Marcus remembered those days now, Elizabeth's mysterious Tuesday appointments, the extra hours she spent at the hospital, the quiet phone calls she would take in private. All pieces of a puzzle he'd been too busy to notice. "But life has its own plans," Lucy continued reading, her voice catching slightly. "As I worked to become Lucy's guardian, to fulfill my promise to Amanda, I learned that my own time was limited. I couldn't bear to add to Marcus's burden then. He was already carrying so much responsibility, so many expectations. So I turned to Sarah, my oldest friend, knowing she would understand what needed to be done." The greenhouse had grown darker, but no one moved to turn on the lights. The city's glow filtered through the glass panels, casting soft shadows around them. In the box that accompanies this journal, you'll find everything needed to make things right. Legal documents, arrangements, and a truth that might surprise you all. But before you open it, remember this: family isn't just about blood or business ties. It's about the connections we choose to nurture, the love we choose to give. Lucy's voice grew softer as she reached the final paragraph. "Marcus, my love, you've always been stronger than you knew. Richard, there's more to life than balance, sheets and board meetings." Amanda understood this. "And Lucy, sweet Lucy, you are the bridge between these worlds. In you, I see the chance for healing, for new beginnings." The journal ended with a simple signature, Elizabeth, and a date from 3 years ago. In the silence that followed, the distant sound of city traffic floated up to their greenhouse sanctuary, a reminder of the world that waited beyond these glass walls. Marcus reached for the wooden box, but Lucy placed her hand over his. "Not yet," she said wisely. "Miss Sarah said we needed to let the truth sink in first. She said sometimes hearts need time to catch up with what the mind learns." Richard looked at his niece with new eyes, seeing perhaps for the first time the wisdom that Elizabeth had recognized years ago. The corporate titan who had spent years hiding his sister's story was gone, replaced by a man beginning to understand the weight of his choices. Morning light streamed through the windows of Marcus's penthouse apartment, casting long shadows across the living room where 3 people sat in contemplative silence. The wooden box from Elizabeth's garden rested on the coffee table, its intricate carvings catching the sunlight. Lucy sat cross-legged on the plush carpet, while Marcus and Richard occupied opposite ends of the sofa, the tension between them palpable but somehow different from before. "The carvings," Lucy said suddenly, leaning forward to trace the patterns with her finger. "They're like the ones in Miss Sarah's apartment. She had a whole shelf of boxes just like this." Marcus nodded, remembering Elizabeth's fascination with artisanal woodwork. "Your mother made these," he said softly, looking at Richard. "Elizabeth told me once about a friend who carved the most beautiful boxes, but I never knew it was Amanda." Richard's hands clenched in his lap. "She learned it from our grandfather. He was a carpenter before the family business took off. Amanda was the only one who showed any interest in learning the craft." His voice carried a note of regret. "I was too busy with business school to pay attention." Lucy's eyes lit up. "So my mother made this, for Elizabeth?" "It appears so," Marcus replied, reaching for the box. The lock mechanism was simple but elegant, a sliding panel that responded to a specific pattern of pressure points. Elizabeth had owned several boxes like this, each containing special mementos or important documents. With careful fingers, he pressed the carved roses in sequence, remembering how Elizabeth had shown him the trick. The box opened with a soft click, revealing its contents: a stack of legal documents, several photographs, and a sealed envelope with both his and Richard's names written in Elizabeth's handwriting. Lucy watched intently as Marcus removed the envelope. Miss Sarah said this would change everything. She said Elizabeth knew exactly what needed to happen. The envelope contained a single sheet of paper covered in Elizabeth's familiar script. My dearest Marcus and Richard, by now you've read my journal and understand some of what I've been preparing for. But there's more to this story, a truth that even Sarah doesn't know completely. Richard, when Amanda came to me about Lucy, she shared something that she never told you. She had been investigating our family's charitable foundation, specifically the children's programs. She discovered irregularities that pointed to someone using the foundation's resources for personal gain. Before she could bring this to light, her illness progressed rapidly. Marcus, love, this is where your expertise becomes crucial. The legal documents in this box contain everything Amanda uncovered, along with additional research I conducted. The foundation's mismanagement hasn't just affected its beneficiaries, it's put Lucy's inheritance and the support for dozens of other children at risk. But this isn't just about money or legal justice. Amanda believed, as do I, that the foundation could be transformed into something truly meaningful. The documents include a proposal for restructuring the foundation, focusing on supporting children in situations similar to Lucy's. It would combine Amanda's vision for arts education with practical support for families in crisis. Richard, your sister never stopped believing in your capacity for change. She knew that beneath the corporate exterior beat a heart capable of great compassion. That's why she left you as co-executor of this plan, alongside Marcus. The choice before you now is not just about accepting Lucy into your lives, though that's certainly part of it. It's about honoring both Amanda's memory and her dreams. For the future, the foundation can become a force for real change, but only if you both work together. Lucy's role in all this is more important than she knows. Amanda believed, and I came to understand, that sometimes it takes a child's perspective to remind us of what truly matters. The programs outlined in these documents were inspired by Lucy's experiences and needs, a blueprint for helping other children find their way to healing and hope. In the stack of photographs, you'll find something special: pictures of Amanda and Lucy from before, moments of joy that Richard never got to see. There's also documentation of Lucy's artistic talents, inherited from her mother. The foundation's first project should be the creation of an arts program in Amanda's name, with Lucy as its first student. The legal documents include everything needed to protect Lucy's interests while allowing both of you to be part of her life. I worked with my trusted colleague James Harrison to ensure everything was properly prepared. He's waiting for your call. The number is paper-clipped to the documents. Remember, this isn't about choosing between business success and personal happiness. It's about finding a way to bring both worlds together, just as Amanda always believed was possible. The future I envision is one where Lucy grows up surrounded by both love and opportunity, where the foundation becomes a testament to Amanda's spirit, and where both of you, Marcus and Richard, find your way back to the men you were always meant to be. The choice, as always, is yours. But know that I have faith in both of you, and in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. With eternal love and hope, Elizabeth. The room fell silent as Marcus finished reading. Lucy had moved closer, now sitting between the two men on the sofa. Richard's face showed a mix of emotions: grief, regret, and something that looked like dawning hope. "I remember now," he said slowly, reaching for the stack of photographs. "Amanda tried to tell me about the foundation. I was so focused on the merger with European markets, I told her it could wait." His hands trembled as he looked through the pictures, seeing his sister's smiling face alongside a younger Lucy. "I never gave her the chance to explain." Marcus watched as Lucy leaned against her uncle's arm, offering comfort in her own quiet way. The morning sun had climbed higher, filling the room with golden light that seemed to soften the sharp edges of their shared pain. In that moment, he could almost feel Elizabeth's presence, guiding them towards something new and unexpected. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Marcus's penthouse, once a showcase of minimalist design and corporate success, began to show subtle signs of change. Lucy's drawings appeared on the refrigerator, held by colorful magnets that Elizabeth had bought years ago but Marcus had stored away. The spare room, which had served as a home office, was slowly transforming into a space for a young girl, its walls waiting to be painted in colors of her choosing. Richard had thrown himself into investigating the foundation with the same intensity he usually reserved for corporate takeovers. But this time, his focus wasn't on profit margins or market share. He spent hours in conference calls with James Harrison, Elizabeth's lawyer, working through the documentation she and Amanda had gathered. The arts program could be operational within months, Richard explained one evening, spreading papers across Marcus's dining room table. Lucy sat nearby, working on a detailed drawing of Elizabeth's garden. We could start with after-school classes at Rainbow House, then expand to other facilities. Marcus studied the proposals, noting how Elizabeth had woven together Amanda's artistic vision with practical business considerations. She thought of everything, he mused. The funding structure, the educational partnerships, even the long-term sustainability plan. That's what Elizabeth did, Lucy said without looking up from her drawing. Miss Sarah said she was like a gardener. She planted seeds for things that would grow even after she was gone. Both men turned to look at her, struck once again by her quiet wisdom. She had settled into life, with Marcus with surprising ease, as if Elizabeth had somehow prepared her for this transition. Each day revealed new connections, small ways in which their lives had been intertwined long before they knew it. The doorbell rang, interrupting their discussion. Marcus opened the door to find Paolo, the waiter from the Italian restaurant, holding a large paper bag. "Delivery for Miss Lucy," he announced with a warm smile. Sarah Martinez had arranged for this to be delivered today. She paid for a year of weekly deliveries, said something about keeping traditions alive. Inside the bag, they found containers of spaghetti with tiny pieces of basil arranged like stars on top, exactly as Sarah used to make for Lucy. Accompanying the food was a note in Sarah's handwriting: "Some traditions are too precious to lose. Keep making new ones together." As they gathered around the dining table, pushing aside the foundation documents to make room for dinner, Marcus noticed how, naturally, they had fallen into a routine. Richard had loosened his tie, his corporate armor softening in the presence of his niece. Lucy hummed quietly as she twirled her pasta, a habit she'd inherited from Amanda, according to Richard's wistful observation. "I've been thinking," Marcus said, watching Lucy arrange her basil stars in a precise pattern. "The penthouse is beautiful, but it's not really a home for a family. Elizabeth always talked about that house in Brighton Gardens, the one with the big backyard and the greenhouse." Richard looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. "The Victorian on Maple Street. Elizabeth used to mention it whenever we drove past, said it was perfect for children," Lucy finished, her eyes bright with interest. "Miss Sarah showed me pictures. She said Elizabeth had plans for the garden, just like at the hospital." Marcus nodded, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "I think it's time for a change, a proper home with space for everyone, including a dedicated art studio." "The foundation could have its offices nearby," Richard added, his business mind naturally seeking practical solutions. "We could convert one of the properties on Oak Avenue, close enough to be convenient, but separate enough to maintain boundaries." Lucy's face lit up with a smile that reminded them both of Elizabeth. "Could we have a treehouse? Miss Sarah said my mom always wanted to build one when she was little." "I think that could be arranged," Richard replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I remember Amanda drawing plans for one in her sketchbooks. I might still have them somewhere." The evening wore on. Their conversation flowed naturally between foundation plans and personal dreams. The weight of secrets and unspoken truths had lifted, replaced by a sense of possibility that felt both exciting and right. Later, After Lucy had gone to bed, Marcus stood at his window looking out at the city lights. The pearl necklace sat in its velvet box on his dresser, no longer a painful reminder of loss, but a bridge between past and future. He could almost hear Elizabeth's laugh, see her approval in the way things were unfolding. A soft knock at his office door revealed Richard, looking more like the friend he'd known in college than the corporate titan he'd become. "She's so much like Amanda," he said quietly. "I've missed so much time." "We can't change the past," Marcus replied, thinking of his own years of emotional isolation. "But Elizabeth gave us a blueprint for the future. And Lucy, she's giving us a reason to follow it." The Victorian house on Maple Street stood before them, its elegant architecture bathed in autumn sunlight. Lucy ran ahead up the brick pathway, her excitement visible in every movement. Marcus and Richard followed more slowly, both taking in the details Elizabeth had loved. The wraparound porch, the bay windows, the intricate gingerbread trim that needed just a touch of restoration. "I can't believe you bought it without even listing the penthouse," Richard remarked, a hint of his old business-minded self showing through. Though I suppose Elizabeth would have approved of the spontaneity. Marcus smiled, watching Lucy explore the front garden. "Some decisions don't need a board meeting to approve them." He pulled out an old key ring from his pocket, another item from the wooden box. Attached was a small note in Elizabeth's handwriting. "For when you're ready to build a real home." The front door opened with a gentle creak, revealing high ceilings and hardwood floors that gleamed, despite years of minimal use. The previous owners had maintained the house's historic character while updating its essential systems, exactly as Elizabeth had noted in her detailed files about the property. "Look," Lucy called from the formal dining room. "There's a secret door." She pointed to a barely visible seam in the wood paneling that, when pressed, revealed a hidden passage to what had once been a butler's pantry. "Your mother would have loved this," Richard said softly. "She was always looking for hidden spaces and secret corners in our childhood home." He ran his hand along the paneling, lost in memories. "She used to hide her drawings in places like this, away from our father's disapproving eyes." Lucy's exploration continued through the house, her observations surprisingly practical for a 7-year-old. "This room gets the morning sun. It would be perfect for painting," she declared, standing in what had been designated as a sitting room. "And look, there's a built-in window seat for reading." As they moved through the spaces, Marcus could almost hear Elizabeth's voice describing her vision for each room. The library, with its floor-to-ceiling shelves, would be perfect for quiet afternoons and homework sessions. The large kitchen, with its restored vintage stove, would become the heart of their home, just as Elizabeth had always wanted. But it was the backyard that took their breath away. A magnificent oak tree dominated one corner, its branches spreading wide, perfect for the treehouse Lucy had requested. The greenhouse, though in need of some repair, was larger than the one at the Guy Hospital garden, and beyond it lay a secret garden, enclosed by old brick walls covered in climbing roses. "Miss Sarah was right," Lucy whispered, standing in the center of the secret garden. "Elizabeth left pieces of herself everywhere, waiting for us to find them." She pointed to a stone bench similar to the one at the hospital, complete with its own hidden compartment. Marcus knelt beside the bench, his heart racing as he found the hidden catch. Inside lay another envelope, this one addressed simply to "my family." Richard and Lucy gathered close as Marcus read Elizabeth's words aloud. "Welcome home, my darlings. If you're reading this, then you've taken the first step toward the future. I always hoped you'd find. This garden is more than just a space for plants to grow. It's a place for healing, for new beginnings, and for the kind of magic that happens when love is given room to bloom. Lucy, sweet girl, the greenhouse is yours to fill with whatever brings you joy. I've left detailed plans for a children's garden program that can be run right here, allowing you to share your gift for bringing beauty into the world, just like your mother did." Richard, the old carriage house at the back of the property, holds something special. Amanda's art supplies and unfinished works. She asked me to keep them safe until the time was right. Now you can help Lucy connect with her mother's legacy in the most beautiful way. Marcus, my love, the master bedroom's window seat holds one final surprise. Look beneath the cushion for my last gift to you all. Remember, a house becomes a home through the love and memories we create within its walls. The secret garden is where I first dreamed of this future, a future where broken pieces would come together to form something even more beautiful than before. Let this place be your sanctuary, your canvas, and your fresh start. With eternal love, Elizabeth. Lucy was already running toward the carriage house with Richard following close behind. Marcus watched them go, noticing how his friend's usually rigid posture had softened, how naturally he reached for his niece's hand as they approached the old building's doors. The sound of Lucy's delighted gasp echoed across the garden as they discovered Amanda's art studio, preserved exactly as she had left it. Canvases lined the walls, some finished, others still works in progress. Wooden boxes similar to the one from the hospital garden were stacked neatly on shelves, each one potentially holding new discoveries. Marcus stayed in the secret garden a moment longer, taking in the peace of the space. A light breeze rustled the rose bushes, carrying with it the promise of change and renewal. Somewhere in the house a final gift waited to be discovered, but for now he was content to watch as Richard and Lucy explored Amanda's artistic legacy together, their voices carrying notes of joy and wonder across the autumn air. The sun had shifted, casting long shadows through the garden, but the light seemed warmer somehow, more welcoming. A pair of cardinals landed on the oak tree's branches, Elizabeth's favorite birds. Marcus smiled, remembering how she used to say they were messengers of good news. Today, watching his new family begin to heal and bond in this space she had prepared for them, he finally understood what she had meant. The master bedroom's window seat beckoned as evening approached. Lucy and Richard were still in the carriage house, their voices drifting up through the garden as they discovered more of Amanda's artistic legacy. Marcus stood in the doorway of what would become his new room, taking in the subtle touches that proved Elizabeth had been planning this for years. The window seat was built into a bay window that overlooked both the secret garden and the massive oak tree. Sunset light filtered through stained glass panels at the top of the window, another detail Elizabeth must have added. With gentle hands, Marcus lifted the cushioned seat. Inside lay a leather portfolio and a small wooden music box. The portfolio contained architectural drawings, detailed plans for transforming the carriage house into a proper art studio and community center. Elizabeth had thought of everything: classroom spaces, a gallery for student works, even a small cafe that could provide job training for older youth from Rainbow House. But it was the music box that made Marcus's hands tremble. He recognized it immediately. It had been Elizabeth's most treasured possession, a gift from her grandmother. When opened, it played a lullaby that Elizabeth had often hummed while working in her garden. Inside, he found another note, along with a small key. "My dearest Marcus, this box has been in my family for generations, passed down from mother to daughter. I had always hoped to continue that tradition, but life had other plans. Now I know why it was waiting for Lucy. The key opens a safety deposit box at City National Bank, box number 847. Inside, you'll find letters I've written to Lucy for every birthday until her 18th year, along with some of Amanda's journals that she entrusted to me. There are also documents about a trust fund Amanda set up for Lucy before she fell ill. Money from her own inheritance that Richard never knew about. But the most precious thing you'll find is a recording. Amanda singing lullabies and telling stories for her daughter, made during her final days. She knew she wouldn't be there to share these moments with Lucy, so she created this gift of love that transcends time. Share these treasures with Lucy when the moments feel right. Let her discover her mother's voice, her thoughts, her dreams. And let this music box become a bridge between past and present, between what was lost and what has been found. The lullaby it plays was my grandmother's favorite. She used to say that music has the power to heal hearts and bridge worlds. Perhaps That's why Lucy was humming this very tune the first time Sarah met her at Rainbow House. Some melodies are written in our very souls. Keep building this beautiful future, my love. You're doing exactly what I hoped you would. Forever yours, Elizabeth. The sound of footsteps on the stairs pulled Marcus from his thoughts. Lucy appeared in the doorway, her arms full of sketch. Papers. Richard close behind her carrying a wooden box similar to the others they'd found. Mom was amazing, Lucy said, her eyes bright with discovery. She drew everything, trees, buildings, people, and look. She held up a detailed sketch of a treehouse, complete with measurements and materials list. She even designed the treehouse. I wanted, Richard nodded, his voice thick with emotion. She designed several versions. This box is full of blueprints and plans, some of them. He paused, clearing his throat. Some of them are for children's art therapy spaces. She was working on proposals for programs very similar to what Elizabeth envisioned for the foundation. Lucy carefully laid out her mother's drawings on the floor, creating a timeline of Amanda's artistic journey. Then she noticed the music box in Marcus's hands. What's that? Marcus smiled, patting the window seat beside him. Come here, both of you. I think it's time for another one of Elizabeth's surprises. As the music box's melody filled the room, Lucy's eyes widened in recognition. I know this song, she whispered. I don't know how, but I know it. Richard sat on Lucy's other side, his hand finding hers. Amanda used to hum this. I'd almost forgotten. She said it reminded her of summer evenings in our grandmother's garden. The three of them sat together as darkness fell, listening to the gentle melody while the last rays of sunset painted the sky in shades of rose and gold. Through the window they could see the secret garden and the carriage house, both holding promises of new beginnings. The music box played on, its sweet notes weaving together past and present, loss and love, endings and beginnings. In that moment, Marcus understood that Elizabeth had given them far more than just a house or a foundation to run. She had given them a chance to become the family that Amanda had dreamed of, that Elizabeth had believed in, and that Lucy had been waiting for all along. The transformation of the carriage house began on a crisp Saturday morning. Construction. Crews worked carefully under Richard's watchful eye, following the detailed plans Elizabeth had left behind. The old building was slowly revealing its potential, just as Amanda's journals were revealing the depths of her vision for children's art. Education. Lucy sat cross-legged in what would become the main studio space, reading from one of her mother's journals, while Marcus sorted through boxes of art supplies. The journal entries painted a vivid picture of Amanda's dreams and hopes. October 15th, Lucy read aloud, her finger tracing her mother's elegant handwriting. Today I watched a young patient at the hospital transform their fear into color on paper. Art has a way of speaking when words fail us. I've been sketching plans for a place where children can find their voice through creativity. Richard would probably call it impractical, but Elizabeth understands. She sees the healing power of beauty just as I do. Richard, who had been reviewing construction details nearby, paused at these words. She was right about me back then, he admitted, sitting down beside his niece. I was so focused on spreadsheets and profit margins that I forgot about the importance of beauty. Marcus watched, as Lucy instinctively leaned against her uncle, offering comfort in her characteristic way. The bond between them had grown stronger with each passing day, nurtured by the discoveries they made in Amanda's art and writings. Look at this, Lucy said, turning to another page. She drew pictures of all the rooms she imagined. This one looks exactly like Elizabeth's plans. She held up the journal, showing a sketch of a light-filled studio space with easels arranged in a circle, remarkably similar to the architectural drawings they'd found in the window seat. The construction, Foreman approached with questions about the skylight installation, and Richard moved away to handle the details. Marcus took his place beside Lucy, noticing how she'd arranged her mother's journals chronologically, using colorful sticky notes to mark important passages. Miss Sarah taught me how to organize research, she explained, seeing his interested look. She said it helps us understand the story better. She turned to a marked page. This entry is from right after she met Elizabeth. Want to hear it? Marcus nodded, recognizing the date from around the time Elizabeth had started spending more time at the hospital. I met someone extraordinary today, Lucy read. Elizabeth Reynolds came to the children's ward, bringing her garden's first harvest of flowers. She has this gift of knowing exactly what each person needs. A sunny daisy for the shy little boy in room 204, elegant iris for the teenage girl struggling with changes in her life. We talked for hours about the healing power of beauty and creativity. She shared her dreams of expanding the hospital's garden program, and I found myself sharing my own vision for art therapy spaces. There's something special about her, a light that makes you believe anything is possible. For the first time since my diagnosis, I feel hope for Lucy's future. The sound of power tools filled the air as workers began installing the new windows. Lucy closed the journal carefully, her expression thoughtful. Mum and Elizabeth were a lot alike, weren't they? They both wanted to help people find beauty in the world. Marcus smiled, remembering Elizabeth's passion for her garden projects. They saw possibilities where others saw problems. Your mother understood art's power to heal, just as Elizabeth believed in the healing power of gardens. And now we're bringing both their dreams together, Lucy observed, gesturing to the space around them. The carriage house was already beginning to reflect the vision both women had shared. Large windows to let in natural light, spaces designed for both individual work and group activities, and a special corner designated for a children's library. A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. A delivery truck had arrived, carrying the first pieces of equipment for the art studio: easels, pottery wheels, and storage units, all carefully selected based on Amanda's notes about creating an accessible and welcoming space for young artists. Richard returned carrying a blueprint rolled under his arm. The contractors found something interesting behind the old shelving, he said, an excited note in his voice. There's a hidden alcove that's perfect for the meditation space Amanda described in her journals. And look at this. He unrolled the blueprint, revealing Amanda's detailed drawings of a reading nook designed to look like a treehouse. Lucy's eyes lit up. Can we include that in the plans, please? Marcus and Richard exchanged glances, both thinking of the many times they'd dismissed creative ideas in favor of practical considerations. Of course we can, Richard said firmly. Your mother's vision deserves to be brought to life exactly as she imagined it. As if in response to his words, a shaft of sunlight broke through the construction dust, illuminating the space where children would soon discover their own creative voices. Lucy stood up, walking to one of the newly installed windows that overlooked the secret garden. Elizabeth knew, didn't she? She said softly. She knew that Mom's art and her gardens would come together somehow. That's why she left us all these clues and plans. Marcus joined her at the window, seeing how the garden and studio space would work together to create something truly special. Elizabeth believed in the power of healing spaces, he replied, but I think she also believed in the power of love to bridge different worlds. Above them, workers carefully positioned the final piece of the main skylight. As it settled into place, the afternoon sun streamed through, creating patterns on the floor that looked remarkably like the designs in Amanda's journals. Lucy caught her breath at the sight. It's perfect, she whispered, her hand finding Marcus's. It's exactly what both of them would have wanted. Richard approached with the construction foreman, who was holding yet another discovered treasure, an old tin box that had been sealed inside one of the walls. Lucy's organizational skills would soon be put to use again as they prepared to uncover whatever new messages Amanda and Elizabeth had left for them to find. The tin box from the carriage house wall sat on the kitchen table of their new home, its weathered surface catching the evening light. Lucy had insisted on waiting until after dinner to open it, arranging their meal with the same careful attention she brought to organizing her mother's journals. Elizabeth always said important discoveries should be shared over good food, she explained, setting out the pasta dishes she'd helped Marcus prepare. She told Miss Sarah that's when hearts are most open to receiving messages from the past. Richard arrived carrying a bottle of sparkling cider, their new tradition for special occasions. The formal business dinners that had once dominated, his evenings seemed like distant memories now, replaced by these intimate family meals filled with conversation and laughter. As they finished their meal, Lucy carefully wiped her hands and reached for the tin box. The lid was slightly rusted but opened smoothly, revealing a collection of items carefully wrapped in silk scarves, another of Amanda's artistic touches. The first scarf concealed a collection of photographs, different from the ones they'd found before. These showed Amanda and Elizabeth working together in what appeared to be art therapy sessions at the hospital. Children surrounded them, their faces bright with creativity and joy. "I remember these sessions," Richard said softly, touching one of the photos. "I visited Amanda at the hospital once, though I tried not to show how worried I was about her health. She was teaching a young patient how to mix watercolors." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "She looked so alive, so purposeful. I should have paid more attention." Lucy squeezed her uncle's hand before unwrapping the next item, a small sketchbook filled with collaborative drawings. Each page showed two distinct styles working together, Amanda's bold, expressive strokes alongside Elizabeth's more delicate and nature-inspired elements. They were planning this all along, Marcus realized, recognizing elements from both the garden and the art studio designs. Every detail of what we're building now, they envisioned it years ago. The final item in the box was a sealed envelope, marked with both Amanda's and Elizabeth's handwriting, to be opened when the studio welcomes its first students. Lucy traced the writing with her finger. "We should wait," she said decisively. "They wanted us to open it at the right moment." Richard nodded, his business instincts giving way to a newfound appreciation for timing and patience. "The contractor says the studio will be ready for the first classes in 3 weeks. The Foundation's board has approved all the programs, and we've already received applications from families at Rainbow House." Marcus watched as Lucy carefully rewrapped each item in its silk scarf. She had inherited her mother's attention to detail, along with Elizabeth's intuitive understanding of the importance of moments and memories. "I've been thinking," she said, arranging the photos back in the box. "Maybe we could start a new kind of journal, one that shows how we're bringing their dreams to life." The suggestion sparked something in Marcus's memory. He left the table briefly, returning with Elizabeth's music box from the window seat. "I think this belongs in the studio," he said, opening it to let the familiar lullaby fill the kitchen. Every new beginning deserves its own melody. As the gentle notes played, Richard retrieved his laptop, opening the Foundation's latest presentation. "Look at this," he said, turning the screen so they could all see. "The Amanda Chen Art Therapy program is already attracting attention from other children's hospitals. They're interested in implementing similar programs." Lucy's face lit up. "Really? Like franchising, but for art and healing?" Richard laughed, a warm, genuine sound that was becoming more frequent. "Exactly. Your mother would have loved the business angle on spreading creativity and healing." Marcus watched them discuss the possibilities, seeing how naturally they had grown into their roles as family. The kitchen, with its warm light and shared meals, had become the heart of their home, just as Elizabeth had envisioned. Even now, he could almost feel her presence in the way Lucy arranged her napkin, in the gentle music from the box, in the plans spreading from their kitchen table out into the world. As evening settled around their home, the three of them moved to the window seat, now filled with comfortable cushions and Lucy's growing collection of sketchbooks. The secret garden was visible in the twilight, its paths lit by small solar lights, another detail from Elizabeth's plans. 3 weeks, Lucy mused, looking out at the carriage house. 3 weeks until we open the doors and share everything they dreamed about. The music box played its last notes as they sat together, three people brought together by love, loss, and the careful plans of two remarkable women who had seen possibilities where others saw only endings. In the growing darkness, the lights in the garden created patterns that looked like stars, guiding them toward the future Elizabeth and Amanda had imagined. The morning of the art center's opening dawned clear and bright, with autumn sunlight streaming through the newly installed skylights of the transformed carriage house. Lucy stood in the center of the main studio space, carefully adjusting the display of her mother's artwork that would serve as inspiration for future students. "Everything has to be perfect," she murmured, stepping back to survey the room. The space had become a magnificent blend of Amanda's artistic vision and Elizabeth's practical warmth. Easels stood in a welcoming circle, just as both women had sketched in their plans. The reading nook, built to resemble a treehouse, invited young visitors to explore its cozy corners. Marcus watched from the doorway as Lucy made her final preparations. She had insisted on being involved in every detail, from selecting the colors for the walls to arranging the art supplies in a way that would make them accessible to children of all ages and abilities. Her organizational skills, honed through cataloging her mother's journals, had proved invaluable. "The first families will be arriving in an hour," Richard said, joining them with a stack of welcome packets. Like everything else about the center, these weren't typical institutional documents. Each folder contained not only program information, but also a personal note from Lucy, explaining how art had helped her connect with her mother's memory. "Did you bring the envelope?" Lucy asked, turning to face them. She was wearing a dress that Amanda had designed, one of the many treasures they'd discovered in the old tin box. Sarah had kept it safe all these years, having it altered to fit Lucy perfectly for this day. Richard produced the envelope that they'd agreed to save for this moment. The paper had aged slightly, but the handwriting remained clear. Both Amanda's artistic flourishes and Elizabeth's elegant script marking it as a joint message for this specific occasion. "Should we open it now?" Marcus asked softly, noting how the morning light created patterns on the floor that seemed to dance around them. Lucy nodded, her expression solemn. "Yes, before everyone arrives. This moment belongs to us first." That's what Miss Sarah would say. They gathered around the central table, designed to be the heart of the studio just as the kitchen table had become the heart of their home. Richard carefully broke the seal, and 3 sheets of paper emerged, one in Amanda's handwriting, one in Elizabeth's, and a third that combined both scripts. Lucy began reading Amanda's letter aloud. "My dearest Lucy, Richard, and Marcus, if you're reading this, then something extraordinary has happened. The dreams Elizabeth and I shared have taken form, and you've found your way to each other, just as we hoped you would. Lucy, my precious daughter, I've watched you grow through Elizabeth's eyes, knowing that someday you would stand in a space like this, ready to help other children find their voice through art. Your heart has always been able to see beauty in unexpected places, a gift that will serve you well as you help others discover their own creativity. Richard, my beloved brother, I hope you finally understood that success isn't measured by market shares alone. Your business acumen combined with compassion can change lives in ways that no quarterly report could ever reflect." The foundation. Your building now is the legacy I always dreamed of for our family. Marcus, Elizabeth chose you not just for your strength, but for your capacity to love deeply, even when it seems easier to hide behind work and routine. Thank you for opening your heart to my daughter and for helping bring this vision to life. The art center you've created is more than just a building. It's a bridge between past and future, between loss and hope, between solitude and connection. Each child who walks through these doors carries their own story, their own need for healing and expression. The space you've built will give them what Elizabeth's garden gave to so many, a chance to grow, to heal, to discover their own light. With eternal love and gratitude. Amanda. The morning light seemed to intensify as Lucy's voice faded. Richard wiped his eyes quietly while Marcus reached for Elizabeth's letter. Her familiar handwriting brought an immediate warmth to his heart as he began to read. My dear ones, standing in this space, surrounded by the fulfillment of our shared dreams, you're experiencing something Amanda and I always knew was possible. The power of love to transform loss into legacy. The Art Center is more than just a tribute to Amanda's vision or my hopes for healing. It's a living testament to the way love continues to grow and change long after we've planted its seeds. Each brushstroke, each creative expression, each moment of connection that happens here will be a new flower blooming in the garden of possibility we've tended together. Lucy, you've become exactly the bridge we hoped you would be, between artistry and healing, between memory and hope. Your gift for organizing beauty and sharing it with others would make your mother so proud. Richard, your journey from corporate titan to compassionate guardian of dreams is perhaps the most beautiful transformation of all. The foundation's work will touch lives in ways that even Amanda and I couldn't fully envision. Marcus, my love, you've learned what I always knew, that true success lies not in the height of our achievements, but in the depth of our connections. The home you've created with Lucy, the way you've opened your heart to new possibilities, these are the real measures of a life well lived. The third page we've left you contains our final gift, a series of sketches for future expansions of the program, ideas we developed together during long afternoons in the hospital garden. Let them be seeds for your own dreams, starting points for the next chapter of this beautiful story you're writing together. With boundless love and joy, Elizabeth. As Marcus finished reading, the sound of approaching voices could be heard. The first families arriving for the opening celebration. Lucy carefully folded the letters and placed them in a special box she'd decorated herself, inspired by her mother's wooden creations. "Ready?" she asked, looking at both men with bright eyes. They nodded, moving toward the entrance where new beginnings waited. The morning sun caught the stained glass panels they'd installed above the doors, sending ribbons of color across the threshold. A final touch that seemed to embody both Amanda's artistic spirit and Elizabeth's love of natural beauty. The SWAU Art Center filled with life as families began arriving. Children from Rainbow House, led by their caretakers, mixed with local families who had heard about the program through the foundation's outreach. Lucy moved among them with natural grace, showing younger children to the supply stations, while guiding older ones toward the display of Amanda's artwork. Marcus watched in amazement as she naturally took on the role of young mentor, explaining to a shy 6-year-old how different brushes could create different effects, just as her mother had detailed in her teaching notes. Richard, meanwhile, was speaking with parents and caregivers, his corporate Polish softened by genuine warmth as he explained the foundation's vision. "This is exactly what Mom and Elizabeth wanted," Lucy said, joining Marcus during a quiet moment. She held up a sketch one of the children had made, a bright, hopeful drawing of a garden filled with butterflies. "Look how she used colors to show feelings, just like in Mom's journals." The morning progressed with an organic flow, each space in the center coming alive with purpose. The reading nook became a sanctuary for children who needed quiet moments. Between creative activities, the central table hosted impromptu art lessons as Lucy shared techniques from her mother's teaching notes. A small girl about Lucy's age sat alone by the window, watching others, but not participating. Her caregiver from Rainbow House explained that she hadn't spoken since arriving at the orphanage 3 months ago. Lucy approached her carefully, carrying her mother's journal of butterfly sketches. "Sometimes it's easier to talk with colors. First," she said, sitting beside the girl, "that's what my mom wrote in her journal. Would you like to see how she drew butterflies?" The girl nodded slightly, and Lucy began showing her the delicate sketches. "See how she used different pressures to make the wings look like they're moving? You can try it too." She demonstrated on a fresh piece of paper, using gentle strokes just as Amanda had described in her teaching notes. Slowly, the girl reached for a pencil. Her first attempts were hesitant, but with Lucy's encouragement, she began to find her own rhythm. By the end of the session, she had created a page full of butterflies, each one slightly more confident than the last. Richard found Marcus observing this interaction. "Elizabeth knew," he said quietly. "She knew Lucy would have this gift for helping others find their voice through art, just like Amanda did." The Foundation's board members arrived for the official ribbon-cutting ceremony, but what they found wasn't the formal event they'd expected. Instead, they witnessed the center already functioning as a living, breathing space for healing and creativity. One board member, initially skeptical of the program's value, watched as Lucy helped the quiet girl add color to her butterflies. "This is more than art therapy," she observed. "This is transformation in action." Marcus nodded, thinking of Elizabeth's words about planting seeds of possibility. Every child who comes here brings their own story, he explained. We're just giving them new ways to tell it. The morning's activities culminated with a collaborative art project, a massive canvas where everyone was invited to contribute. Lucy had suggested this idea, inspired by a similar project described in her mother's journals. Children, parents, and caregivers worked together, creating a vibrant tapestry of hope and connection. As the first session drew to a close, Lucy gathered everyone around the central table. The quiet girl sat next to her, still holding her butterfly drawings. Richard stood with the board members, his corporate persona completely forgotten as he watched his niece address the group. My mom believed that art could help us find light in dark places, Lucy began, her voice clear and confident. Elizabeth believed gardens could help heal broken hearts. Together they dreamed of a place where both these things could happen. Today, we're making their dream real. She gestured to the collaborative canvas, now filled with colors and shapes that somehow worked together in perfect harmony. Look what we created together. Every stroke, every color choice, every tiny detail is part of our shared story now. The quiet girl tugged at Lucy's sleeve, then held up her butterfly drawings. In a small but clear voice, she said, "Can I put one on the wall with the others?" Lucy's smile lit up the room. "Of course. That's exactly what this place is for, sharing our light with others." As families began gathering their things to leave, Marcus noticed something remarkable. The morning light, streaming through the stained glass panels, cast colorful shadows that danced across the walls. They looked just like butterflies in flight, a detail he was certain Elizabeth and Amanda had planned together. Richard approached with the foundation schedule for the next month, full of new programs and workshops. "We're already getting calls from other cities," he said. "They want to know how to create spaces like this." Lucy, helping the quiet girl pin her butterfly drawing to the display wall, called out, "Can we show them Mom's teaching journals?" And, "Elizabeth's garden plans? They're meant to be shared, right?" Marcus watched as the last butterfly was pinned in place, its paper wings catching the light. "Yes," he said softly, "everything they left us was meant to be shared. That's how love grows." 6 months after the art center's opening, spring brought new life to Elizabeth's garden and fresh possibilities to the foundation's work. The quiet girl with the butterfly drawings, Emma, had become inseparable from Lucy, both of them now leading art sessions for younger children. The wall of butterflies had grown into a stunning installation that attracted visitors from across the country. Marcus sat in his home office, reviewing proposals for new centers in different cities, each one inspired by the success of their original program. The morning sun streamed through the window, illuminating photographs of the various lives touched by Amanda and Elizabeth's vision. "Uncle Richard, look!" Lucy's voice carried from the garden. Marcus moved to the window to see Lucy and Richard, examining something in the greenhouse, another space that had evolved beyond their expectations. Richard, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a sight that still surprised his business associates, was helping Lucy set up a new display. The greenhouse had become a unique gallery space, where artwork from the center was exhibited alongside. Growing plants, a perfect blend of Amanda's artistic vision and Elizabeth's horticultural wisdom. "We found more of Mom's teaching notes," Lucy explained as Marcus joined them. She held up a weathered notebook, its pages filled with Amanda's distinctive handwriting. "They were hidden inside that old gardening book Elizabeth left in the library. Look at these lesson plans. They're perfect for the new centers." Richard carefully took the notebook, his expression softening as he recognized his sister's drawings in the margins. She had everything planned out, he mused. Step-by-step instructions for helping children express their emotions through art. Elizabeth must have been collecting these all along. The greenhouse had become Lucy's favorite place to prepare for her mentoring sessions. Young artists' works lined the walls, interspersed with growing vines and flowering plants. The space embodied the healing philosophy both women had envisioned, nature and creativity working in harmony. "Did you tell them about Chicago?" Lucy asked Richard, arranging colored pencils for her afternoon session. Richard smiled, a genuine expression that had replaced his former corporate mask. "I was just getting to that," he said to Marcus. "The Chicago Children's Hospital wants to implement our full program. They've already designated space for both an art studio and a healing garden." Marcus watched as Lucy demonstrated proper pencil technique to Emma, who had arrived early for their session. The two girls worked together seamlessly, their friendship a testament to the program's impact. Emma, once silent and withdrawn, now helped lead art therapy sessions for younger children, her butterfly drawings becoming the center's unofficial symbol. Elizabeth left detailed plans for expansion, Richard continued, pulling out his tablet to show Marcus the proposals. She and Amanda had mapped out potential locations across the country. They even identified partner organizations in each city. He paused, shaking his head in amazement. "All this time I thought I was the strategic planner in the family." Lucy called them over to see Emma's latest work, a series of drawings showing the journey of a butterfly from cocoon to flight. The symbolism wasn't lost on any of them. Emma had signed her name proudly at the bottom, something unimaginable just months ago. "We should include these in the presentation for the Chicago team," Lucy suggested, her business instincts matching her artistic sensitivity. "Show them real examples of how art helps healing." A group of children arrived for the afternoon session, their excited voices filling the greenhouse. Among them was a boy who reminded Marcus of himself at that age, serious and reserved, trying to maintain control in a world that felt overwhelming. Lucy approached him with natural grace. "Would you like to see something special?" she asked, leading him to a quiet corner where Amanda's journals were displayed. "My mum wrote about helping people find their stories through art. Sometimes the quietest people have the most beautiful stories to tell." The boy's expression softened as Lucy showed him Amanda's early sketches, explaining how art had helped her mother express feelings when words felt too difficult. Marcus recognized Elizabeth's influence in Lucy's gentle approach, the way she created safe spaces for others to explore their emotions. Richard's phone buzzed with messages from other interested hospitals and organizations, but for once, he let them wait. Instead, he joined Lucy and the boy, sharing stories about Amanda's art and his own journey of rediscovering creativity. As the afternoon light filtered through the greenhouse glass, creating rainbow patterns on the walls, Marcus reflected on how far they'd come. The foundation's work had expanded beyond anything they'd initially imagined, yet its heart remained firmly rooted in the personal connections formed in this space. Emma approached with a new butterfly drawing, this one more elaborate than her previous works. "It's for the memory wall," she explained softly, "to show other kids that stories can change." The memory wall had become a powerful feature of the center, a place where children could display artwork that marked important moments in their healing journey. It stood as a testament to Amanda's belief in art's transformative power and Elizabeth's understanding of the importance of creating spaces for growth. Lucy helped Emma pin up her new butterfly, adjusting it so the light caught the metallic details she'd added to the wings. "Perfect," she declared, "just like Mom and Elizabeth would have wanted." A gentle breeze through the greenhouse's open windows carried the scent of blooming flowers from Elizabeth's garden, mixing with the creative energy of the art session. In that moment, Marcus could almost hear Elizabeth's laugh, see Amanda's smile, feel the presence of both women in the beautiful space their love had created. The summer evening cast long shadows across Elizabeth's garden as Lucy led a special art session for the Foundation's board members. The corporate executives who had once questioned the program's value now sat at easels, following Lucy's confident instructions on expressing emotions through color and form. "My mom wrote that everyone has an artist inside them," Lucy explained, moving between the easels with natural authority. "Sometimes they just need permission to let that artist out." Richard, watching from the greenhouse doorway, couldn't help but smile at the sight of his former boardroom rivals discovering their creative sides. The quarterly reports on his tablet showed impressive numbers: program expansions, lives touched, measurable improvements in participants' emotional well-being. But the real success was visible in moments like this. Marcus joined him, carrying Elizabeth's music box. "Look what we found in the attic," he said, opening it to let the familiar lullaby play. There was another hidden compartment. Inside lay a collection of small watercolor paintings, each depicting a different stage of the art center's development. Elizabeth had painted them based on Amanda's sketches, creating a visual timeline of their shared dream. The final painting showed a scene remarkably similar to the present moment, the garden full of people creating art together. "She knew," Lucy said, approaching after setting her students to work on their projects. Elizabeth knew exactly how everything would turn out. Emma, who had been helping younger children with their brushwork, joined them with a folder of drawings. "These are ready for the Chicago presentation," she said, her voice clear and confident. A far cry from the silent girl who had first entered the center. The folder contained success stories illustrated by the children themselves, visual testimonies of their journeys through art therapy. Each drawing was accompanied by notes in Lucy's careful handwriting, explaining the significance of the colors and symbols used. "The Chicago team arrives tomorrow," Richard reminded them, though his tone carried excitement rather than corporate anxiety. "They want to see everything, the art programs, the garden therapy sessions, even the parent support groups." Lucy nodded, her expression thoughtful. "We should show them Mum's teaching journals first," she suggested. "Help them understand that this isn't just about art. It's about giving people tools to tell their stories." The board members had finished their paintings, each one revealing something surprisingly personal. The CEO of a major corporation had painted a memory of his childhood treehouse. A stern financial director created a vibrant garden scene inspired by her grandmother's flower shop. "This is what Mom meant about art breaking down walls," Lucy observed, helping to display the finished works. "Look how different everyone seems when they're creating something." Marcus watched as the corporate executives shed their formal personas, becoming simply people sharing their stories through color and shape. Elizabeth had predicted this too. How the center would transform not just the children it served, but everyone who engaged with its programs. Emma brought out her latest project, a series of paintings documenting her own journey at the center. The first showed a small, isolated butterfly, while the final piece depicted a whole garden of butterflies in flight. "For the new centers," she explained, "to show other kids what's possible." The evening light softened, and solar lights throughout the garden automatically illuminated, another detail from Elizabeth's plans. The space took on a magical quality as art and nature merged in the gentle glow. Richard gathered everyone for a final announcement. "Thanks to the success of our programs here, the Foundation has received a major grant to establish centers in 10 more cities," he revealed. "But more importantly, we've been asked to create a training program for art therapists using Amanda's teaching methods and Elizabeth's integrated approach to healing spaces." Lucy's eyes brightened. "Like a school for helping helpers." "Exactly," Marcus confirmed. "We'll be teaching others how to create spaces like this, sharing everything we've learned from Amanda's journals and Elizabeth's gardens." The music box played its lullaby softly in the background as board members gathered their artwork, each one transformed by the experience. Many had already asked about enrolling their own children in the program, recognizing the value of what Amanda and Elizabeth had created. As the garden slowly emptied, Lucy, Marcus, and Richard remained, sitting on the bench where their journey had begun. The hidden compartment that had once held Elizabeth's letter now contained their own journal, documenting the center's growth and impact. "Should we add today's story?" Lucy asked, reaching for the journal. Marcus nodded, watching as she carefully recorded the evening's events, adding pressed flowers from the garden between the pages, a technique she'd learned from Elizabeth's notes. "It's amazing," Richard mused, "how love can grow into something so much bigger than ourselves." The music box played its final notes as Lucy finished writing, her words capturing not just the events of the day, but the spirit of healing and hope that Amanda and Elizabeth had envisioned. In the gentle evening light, surrounded by art and growing things, their dream had blossomed into a reality more beautiful than even they could have imagined. 1 year to the day since Lucy first appeared with Elizabeth's pearl necklace, the Victorian house on Maple Street buzzed with activity. Representatives from art therapy centers across the country gathered for the Foundation's first national conference, transforming the property into a living testament to Amanda and Elizabeth's vision. The secret garden had become an outdoor classroom where Lucy and Emma led workshops on integrating art and nature therapy. The Carriage House studio hosted rotating exhibitions of student artwork from various centers, each piece telling a story of healing and hope. Even the treehouse, built exactly to Amanda's specifications, served as a unique breakout space for young art therapy mentors. Marcus stood in Elizabeth's greenhouse, now expanded according to plans found in her final notes, watching Lucy demonstrate her mother's watercolor techniques to a group of art therapists. She wore the pearl necklace, now a symbol not just of past love but of continuing legacy. Mom always said that every color tells a story, Lucy explained, mixing paints with confident strokes. When we help children choose their colors, we're helping them find their voice. Her audience took careful notes, recognizing the wisdom in Amanda's teaching philosophy. Richard entered carrying a leather-bound book, the complete collection of Amanda's teaching methods, finally published, and ready for distribution to art therapy programs nationwide. "The first copies just arrived," he announced, his voice carrying the pride of a man who had learned to measure success in smiles rather than stock prices. Lucy paused her demonstration to accept a copy, her fingers tracing the embossed title, "The Art of Healing, the Amanda Chen Method." Below it in smaller text, with contributions from Elizabeth Reynolds's garden therapy approach. "Elizabeth would have loved this," Marcus said softly, looking through the book. It was a beautiful blend of Amanda's artistic instruction and Elizabeth's insights about creating therapeutic spaces. Throughout the text, Lucy had added her own observations, bringing a child's perspective to the methodology. The quiet girl who had once shown up on his doorstep with a velvet box had blossomed into a poised young teacher, carrying forward both her mother's artistic gift and Elizabeth's nurturing spirit. Her art therapy sessions were now recorded and shared with new centers, serving as a model for how to connect with children through creativity. Emma, who had become the program's unofficial ambassador, led a group of visitors through the butterfly garden, a new addition inspired by her own journey. "Every butterfly here represents someone's story of change," she explained, her voice strong and clear. "When new students arrive, they add their own butterflies to the collection." The Foundation's work had expanded beyond anything they had initially imagined. The Amanda Chen Art Therapy Program operated in 20 cities, with more locations planned. Each center followed the original model, an art studio paired with a healing garden, creating spaces where creativity and nature worked together to nurture wounded hearts. Richard had undergone perhaps the most surprising transformation. The corporate titan who once measured life in quarterly reports now spent his days helping other communities establish their own centers. His business acumen, combined with his newfound appreciation for the healing arts, made him uniquely qualified to spread Amanda and Elizabeth's vision. As afternoon light filtered through the greenhouse glass, Lucy gathered everyone for a special announcement. She stood beside the central workstation, where Elizabeth's music box played its familiar lullaby. "A year ago," she began, her young voice carrying the weight of wisdom beyond her years, "this journey started with a pearl necklace and a message of love. Today we're not just continuing Elizabeth and my mum's work, we're growing it into something new." She unveiled a series of architectural drawings, plans for an international training center to be built on adjacent property. The design incorporated elements from both women's visions, Amanda's artistic, spaces flowing seamlessly into Elizabeth's garden concepts. "The Amanda Chen and Elizabeth Reynolds Institute for Creative Healing," Richard announced, standing beside his niece. "A place where art therapists, counselors, and healing space designers can learn to create their own centers of hope." Marcus watched as Lucy walked the group through the plans, pointing out how each element reflected her mother's and Elizabeth's philosophical approaches. The institute would include research facilities, training spaces, and most importantly, a living laboratory where new therapeutic techniques could be developed and refined. "But the most exciting part," Lucy continued, her eyes sparkling, "is this." She rolled out another set of plans, designs for a residential program that would help other children become art therapy mentors. Because sometimes the best healing comes from those who understand the journey. Emma stepped forward, sharing her own story of transformation through art. The audience listened intently as she explained how becoming a mentor had completed her own healing process. Her butterfly drawings, once simple expressions of hope, had evolved into teaching tools used across all their centers. As the presentation concluded, Marcus noticed something remarkable. The afternoon sun, streaming through the greenhouse's stained glass panels, created a pattern of light that looked exactly like the watercolor Elizabeth had painted in her final vision of the space. Lucy had positioned everything precisely to recreate that image, another detail she had inherited from both women who had shaped her life. Richard closed his laptop, ignoring the business emails that could wait. Amanda always said that art had the power to heal the world, he reflected. I never truly understood until now. Lucy smiled, adjusting the pearl necklace. And Elizabeth knew that sometimes the biggest dreams just need time and love to grow. She looked around at the space they had created together, a space that had become so much more than a simple art studio or garden. They gave us the seeds. We just had to learn how to help them bloom. The seasons turned, and with each passing month, the vision that Elizabeth and Amanda had planted continued to flourish in unexpected ways. On a bright autumn morning, exactly 2 years after Lucy first appeared with the velvet box, 3 people stood in the secret garden surrounding a newly installed sundial. The sundial, crafted from bronze and decorated with butterflies, carried an inscription that Lucy had found in one of Amanda's journals. Time is measured not in minutes, but in moments of love shared. Around its base, Elizabeth's favorite roses bloomed, their petals catching the morning light. Marcus adjusted his tie, no longer the corporate armor it had once been, but a choice for a special occasion. Today marked not just the anniversary of their beginning, but also the official opening of the International Institute. Lucy, now 9, stood between him and Richard, reading aloud from a leather journal, their own addition to the legacy of written wisdom Elizabeth and Amanda had left behind. Dear Elizabeth and Mom, she read, her voice clear in the morning. Today we're opening the doors to your biggest dream. The Institute will teach others how to create spaces of healing and hope, but more importantly, it will show them how love can transform anything, even loss, into something beautiful. Richard, dressed casually in accordance with his new life philosophy, added another photo to the memory wall they'd created in the garden. It showed Lucy teaching her first official class at the Institute, sharing Amanda's techniques with a new generation of art therapists. Beside it hung Emma's original butterfly drawing, now framed and serving as inspiration for countless others. The foundation has approved centers in 30 cities, Richard said, his voice carrying pride rather than corporate satisfaction. But the numbers don't tell the real story. It's the letters we receive, the pictures children send, the families who find healing through art and nature. That's how we measure success now. Lucy nodded, touching the pearl necklace that had become a symbol of their journey. Miss Sarah would be proud. She knew the necklace would help us find each other. She paused, looking at the sundial. Do you think they knew? Elizabeth and Mom? Did they know exactly how everything would turn out? Marcus smiled, remembering all the carefully laid plans they'd discovered over the past 2 years. I think they knew the most important part, that love has a way of growing beyond our imagination. The sound of arriving cars announced the day's beginning. The Institute's first full class of students was arriving, art therapists, garden, designers, counselors, and most importantly, young mentors like Lucy and Emma, each carrying their own stories of transformation. Inside the Victorian house, every room now served a purpose in their mission. The formal dining room had become a conference space where research and creativity merged. The library held not just books, but a complete digital archive of Amanda's teaching methods and Elizabeth's garden therapy approaches. The kitchen remained the heart of the home, where shared meals still sparked new ideas and deeper connections. Lucy led the way to the Institute's main entrance, where a stained glass window created patterns of light across the threshold. The design, based on one of Amanda's sketches and modified by Elizabeth's notes about natural light, incorporated butterflies, flowers, and the subtle suggestion of open doors. "Ready?" she asked, looking at Marcus and Richard. They nodded, watching. As she opened the doors to welcome the first class, students filed in, their excited voices filling the space with new energy. Many carried portfolios of art or garden designs, each one ready to learn how to create their own centers of healing. Emma, now the Institute's youngest certified instructor, began her morning workshop in the butterfly garden. Her once silent voice rang out clear and strong as she shared her story, showing others how art had given her wings to fly. Richard visited the Carriage House studio, where Amanda's original artworks hung alongside pieces by children from centers across the country. Each piece told a story of transformation, of light found in darkness, of hope blooming in unexpected places. In the greenhouse, Marcus paused by Elizabeth's music box, now displayed in a special alcove. Its melody had become the Institute's unofficial theme, playing during graduations and special ceremonies. As the familiar notes filled the air, he remembered Elizabeth's words about seeds of possibility and Amanda's belief in the power of art to heal hearts. Lucy joined him, carrying a fresh journal. "I thought we could start a new one," she said, opening to the first blank page, "for the next chapter of our story." Together they watched as the Institute came to life around them. In every corner, Elizabeth and Amanda's vision manifested in new ways, in the art being created, in the gardens being planned, in the lives being transformed. Their legacy had grown into something greater than either had imagined, yet exactly what both had dreamed. The sundial cast its shadow across the garden, marking not just time but the endless possibilities that love creates. In the gentle autumn breeze, butterflies danced among Elizabeth's roses, their wings catching the light like promises taking flight. And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty they had all helped create,